I realize I'm standing between you and a bathroom break, so I'll try and be as efficient as possible. I wanted to get into a little bit of the specifics about what community solar means for New York, because every state's regulations and utility regulations and state policies are slightly different. So in New York, you have to have at least 10 members. The members need to use at least 1,000 kilowatt hours a year, which is a pretty low barrier. Most people use much more than that. Can exceed historical average annual electricity consumption. And then in terms of an anchor customer or large customers, incorporating them into the mix of a community solar project, they can't, anyone who has a demand of over 25 kW, they can't take more than 40% of the project's output. So those are just some of the basic sort of guidelines of how community solar is structured here in New York. And then there's roles of members. So the members, you want to participate. A member is a participant in a community solar project. You want to select a project, what type of package or what type of product offering, which we'll learn more about what those variations are through the rest of the morning and this afternoon. They provide their utility information to the project sponsor, project organizer, and then they gain access to the benefits of that solar project on their utility bill. So that's sort of the role of the member. They give their utility information, they sign up with the provider, they sign some contracts, and they see savings on their energy bill. How is the power generated and valued? So there's a couple of different ways that remote net metering works and is valued in New York. As we've thought through how these projects are likely to be structured, they're probably going to be on mostly vacant lots that don't have very much utility load, so they're on what is called a non-demand meter. So then therefore they get crediting at a volumetric rate based on the member's retail rate. So that's probably the most cost-effective way to transfer the value of a solar project to a member rather than being on a demand meter where it's based on the host's volumetric rate and it's a monetary credit, and that is usually lower. So we're expecting that most of the community solar projects in New York are probably going to be on non-demand meters, and you get the value at the member's retail rate. Size, location, cost of projects here in New York, so limited to 2 megawatts, but that's also by, there could be limits from the utilities perspective in that a 2 megawatt project might actually not, it might fit in terms of acreage, but you may not be able to cost effectively interconnect. But 2 megawatts, but that's also per parcel and per meter. So if you're in a particularly good location, you could parcel out the land into separate parcels and essentially put together a larger than 2 megawatt project. Scale-wise, that's roughly 200 to 400 households. A megawatt project usually takes up between 5 or 6 acres of land if it's a ground-mounted system, just in terms of scale, what you're looking at in terms of how much land you need for these projects. They can essentially be located anywhere: carports, parking canopy structures, public land, private land, wherever it works. And then cost, if you look at in terms of if a municipality or private entity or somebody else was looking to buy one of these projects themselves, when you run the numbers of 2 megawatt projects, somewhere between $6 and $8 million before incentives, maybe less. So municipalities, as Chris mentioned, they're the real sort of key here because they have a lot of land, they have access to a lot of their constituents, they're a trusted voice in the community, they can help organize regional planning departments like Chris. They also can play a really important role. They also have goals in terms of expanding access to solar within their communities to meet their climate or energy or climate adaptation, energy security goals. And municipalities, they can participate by sponsoring a shared solar project, so really getting into the weeds and managing customer relationships. That's something that they could do if they wanted to. Hosting a project on municipal land, so leasing the land to a private developer to benefit members of the community. And becoming a member themselves of the project, being one of that 40%, a large off-taker of the project, to maybe buy down the cost by being a significant off-taker that's pretty much guaranteed to be around for the 20-year term of the agreement, the municipality, and then leaving the other 60% to float among different members at the residential level. And then facilitating the zoning of privately driven projects, streamlining permitting, doing everything that the city, municipality, or town or county can do to help streamline the process and keep those costs down. Those are all the soft costs that were mentioned earlier so well by Chris in terms of that 60% cost. The former Secretary of Energy, used to say that even if the equipment was free, you might spend 10 or 20 grand for a solar PV system. So the equipment is never going to be free, and so there's all sorts of other process costs that we can help reduce. In terms of private landowners, you have private land, you're not doing anything with it. What can you do? You could turn it into a community solar project. So potential lease payments, and those range sort of all over the place. We've seen anywhere from, I think it's somewhere between 5 and 20,000 per acre is like the scale. So it could be anywhere, right? It depends on the value of the land, the value of the project. You could put it out there, but get as many bids as you can to try and lease out that property to a solar developer. There's other benefits that go along for the landowners. Basically by hosting a project or renting out land, or partnering with a developer to launch a community solar project on property that they own. So as members, you're signing up for something, a community solar participant. So there's things that you want to ask questions of whoever is offering you one of these products, as you would with any other product that's on the market. So is it going to save you money? Over what time frame is it going to save money? Is it immediate savings, or are you expected to see savings over time? What's the length of the agreement? Usually it's a 15 or 20-year term of the agreement. How do you get out of that agreement? Are there membership fees or costs? How is it structured? Are you just paying per kilowatt hour, or are you paying a down payment? Or are you paying upfront? Or are you paying over time? So really, work with whoever it is offering one of these products so you understand exactly what you're signing up for. What are their assumptions in terms of increase in energy costs versus if there's an escalator on the price that you're paying over time? How do those pencil out? What's a reasonable expectation in terms of the amount of energy price increase that you would see? Are there early termination fees? What are those? If you move to within the same NISO utility zone and same utility service territory, you can take that contract with you. If you were to move outside of that, what are the methods that you have to transfer it to the new owner of the property or the new owner of the electric bill, or can you transfer it to anyone else within the load zone and the service territory? Those are questions that you want to ask. And what else? Operations and maintenance plan. This is if there's like an ownership piece, if you're actually owning part of the system, who's in charge of operations and maintenance? Usually it's the project sponsor or the developer, but you want to see sort of what that looks like. Is there a performance guarantee? What if the system is underperforming? Do they offer to pay you the difference if they've done something that has not kept the system up and running the way it should be? Usually these third-party agreements, everybody has the incentive to keep it performing as much as possible because you're essentially not paying for what is not delivered in terms of credits on your bill. So it's usually not an issue, but something to ask. Is there a performance guarantee? And then what happens if the company that's operating the system goes out of business, or they're able to transfer it to somebody who has the experience and knowledge to take over the ownership and sponsorship and management of a community solar project. So say you want to be a project sponsor, and as Max mentioned, there's some great resources from Meister, a fact sheet that's coming out that's sort of the nuts and bolts of what does it mean to be a project sponsor. So over the 20 or 30 year life of the project, you're arranging for the development of the project, and so we've seen interest from municipalities saying, well, why don't we own the system and we manage it on behalf of our communities? And so you should just know what that looks like going forward. It's likely to be a team involved because the municipality itself isn't going to build and construct the project, so they're going to have to go out and procure a solar energy developer to an EPC contractor to actually engineer, procure, and construct the project. So they arrange for the development of the project. They sell the shares to their members to make sure that it's fully subscribed. They manage customer turnover, making sure that they attract new customers, and obviously there's going to be a lot of partnerships there to market and do outreach to those individuals. The sponsor will interface with the utility to make sure that the information is transferred from the member into the utility, and if members aren't seeing the account show up in their bill or there's some question, they're going to call the sponsor then follows up with the utility. They'll probably also call the utility. So there has to be a lot of partnership there between the sponsor, the utility, and the member to coordinate when questions arise, like when is the project coming online, when am I going to see my savings, the credit doesn't match up with what I expected, just figuring all of those logistics out. And then operate and maintain the power project or hire someone to do that. So the development process, the key is really stakeholder engagement and goal setting from early on. Where should this project be? What are the goals of the project? What do we want to succeed? How many members are we looking for? What's the scale or size? Collect data on where can this go? Where are good sites from the community's perspective? Where are good sites from the utilities' perspective, from members' perspectives? We don't want to use it on, parkland. The old, capped landfill, probably a good site, but is there utility service to that site? And it doesn't have to be within the community that is benefiting from the project. It can be anywhere within the New York ISO and utility load zone, so it could be in a neighboring community, it could be within the same county, so it can be a regional approach to this development. It doesn't have to be right in the community. If a municipality is involved, they have to go out to bid. Just under public procurement laws in New York. So we have a model RFP for Solarize that also incorporates language if you want to include an add-on for community solar. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that resource. And then review those bids, select a developer, the PV Trainers Network. A lot of our technical assistance is in, we've reviewed a number, and I recognize a number of faces whose RFPs I've seen and had phone calls with you going over on the phone, where you get 3 bids from different solar developers saying we can offer you this in terms of price. We can help walk through those contracts and flag things that we've seen in the past. So I would encourage you to reach out to the PV Trainers Network through Meister. And then negotiating the final terms of the contract. What's the PPA price both for the municipality if they're a member and also the members? Are they going to save 10% off of their electric bill? Are they going to save 15%? What's the savings to the municipality? Making sure that you're comparing those bids apples to apples, because they can sort of structure them in different ways. I'm a little short on time here, so these slides will be available, which is why they're a little more text heavy than I would have liked. But there's different roles between the host, the sponsor, and the members, depending on whether they're public or private. I sort of walk through the public process. Privately, of course, there isn't public procurement rules that we would have to go by, but as with anything, we suggest you get 3 or more bids to see what the offers are. If you're just approached by a developer because they're looking for land to develop a community solar project, see about getting a couple other options, a couple other offers to see what the difference is, and pick whoever you think is going to be best managing the lease of your property. And then what do you ask of developers, their qualifications? This is also true of project sponsors, a number of great project sponsors in the room that have done a lot of excellent community solar projects across the country. You want to ask them questions like, what's their experience? Get references, who are their team members, what is their experience? What's their price proposal, their timeline, how long is it going to take? If they don't get this done in a year, making sure that you can walk away and pick somebody else who can get this done within a reasonable time frame, unless there are delays out of their control, these things like that. What type of equipment, expected output from the system, performance guarantees, who's their financing, how are they going to maintain it? We've also heard a lot of concern from municipalities about the potential of decommissioning. They don't want to be left with a solar project that has been walked away from and there's no members 20 years from now and it's just sitting there. Is there a way to at least get the equipment off of the property after the 20 years and repurpose it? Now, most of these systems, the warranties are 25 years, so they're probably going to last at least 40, and because of the, or at least 30 years, and also because of the modularity of solar, I would expect that they would be upgraded over time with more efficient panels. So I don't think there's a huge risk of projects just sort of being walked away from and sitting there, but it is definitely a legitimate concern, and so there's ways to work through a developer and sort of covering what's the decommissioning plan in case folks were to go bankrupt, or for some reason the project was left on a piece of property and the town wanted to make sure that it was removed safely. We sort of talked about these, making sure you engage with the utility, look at the zoning ordinances. Can the project be allowed there from a zoning perspective? Are there things that the municipality can do to improve the zoning and permitting process? Reviewing the status of property taxes. There's an exemption in New York. Municipalities may have opted out of that exemption, so you want to make sure that you know what that is, the status of that is going forward. Most of the projects are large enough to the SECRA authority, sort of environmental review. Most of the projects are probably large enough to require that, so it shouldn't be a problem getting approval, but just things to keep in mind as you go forward, engaging stakeholders and asking for help in terms of walking through these processes. So with that, this is the PV Trainers Network website. We have a lot of great resources. As Chris mentioned, this was our Solar Ready 2 project that I've been working with him for the last 2.5 years on. There's also great resources on soft cost reductions through the U.S. Department of Energy Sunshot Initiative. And finally, the U.S. DOE is launching this spring Solar Power in America by recognizing communities. So communities that have taken steps to do innovative actions on solar, whether it's community solar or solarized, but also have taken actions like adopting the unified solar permit, improve their zoning and other processes to reduce soft costs. So reducing that 60% that the 18,000 different permitting jurisdictions in the United States have control over. You've done sort of smart steps to reduce do what you can as a local government to reduce soft costs. The DOE is going to create a recognition and designation program, and there is technical assistance from the Department of Energy available as well, free to municipalities to help you become designated. And so we are coordinating closely with NYSERDA because it dovetails in a lot of the work that NYSERDA is doing in New York. And so we would encourage you, if you're thinking about any of this stuff, there's lots of great free technical assistance available, and we encourage you to reach out for that help. There we go. Thanks.